If at any time you can't hear me, just yell. I hope to put this down and walk among you in a minute. I'd be a fool if I thought I was going to talk when I could smell the food behind me. I think I'd rather be playing the Giants. Is that the name of that team? we bring
Giants,
from
midgets,
Boston.
whatever.
Molto piacere di fare una shooting Cosenza. Just very quickly, I'm going to do this in two parts. One, getting ready to eat dinner. I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to come back because I want to take any questions that you may have about anything that you've been lied to about so far. You'll see if some of you, I asked them to put it on my website, you go on the website. We're going to talk about this one particular book tonight, 784 Broadway. And I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to mention the first book that I wrote, and it's called Necessary Assets. And it's a 424-page tome, and it's about terrorism, and it's about an attack on the United States. And the reason why I wrote this was because I had some things to say about how we gather intelligence. And we've gotten too far into electronic intelligence, and we've given up human intelligence. And in this book, nobody would know anything about the potential attack, except for the fact that the Sicilian Mafia opens up a back channel of communication with a former FBI agent. And that gets the ball rolling. And it follows a progression. I don't want to get into it, but the progression is one that anybody could read this book and have some understanding about how a terrorism investigation would take place. And what Frank just said is very true about soft targets in the United States. Most people feel it's only a question of when, because it's too easy to do. This attack in Paris was not sophisticated, and neither would one be here in this country. Everybody working together, being alert, being in a train station, being in an airport, seeing what's going on, going to say, hey, check out this guy. It happened the other day on an airplane. Two guys got flagged. They stopped the flight, whatever. I don't want to get into this right now, but I wound up bringing the book because of what happened in Paris and because I had spoken a lot on this subject when this book came out a little over a year ago. Anything that I ever did in the FBI has got more to do with this book right here, 784 Broadway. By the way, the cover on Necessary Assets was done by a guy named Lenny Masiglia. This cover was done by Lenny Masiglia. We're trying to promote the Italian culture, and guess who's doing my covers? Lenny Masiglia. This is an actual photograph of the store at 784 Broadway. It was right where Broadway meets Albany Street. It had been there for a long time. The store had been in my family since at least 1890. And it was finally torn down when some genius decided they needed another interchange. And that was in 1960, I believe. There were 5 people in my life in Kingston who had more to do with whatever I am, good, bad, or indifferent. And it all came out of these visits. When I come back, just briefly, my family was my great-grandmother, Assunta Garbarino, lived to be 97. I knew her well. She was blind in later years, and I used to sit with her at night. We lived in an apartment above the store, and that's where we stayed. There was a camp on Route 28A in West Hurley that the family went to. And it was a social gathering center for family and friends. It was an Italian community. And this is how I learned about people. This is how I learned about, as I look back, people talk about parent tapes. Oh, you have this decision to make. Oh, I remember my mother saying. In this case, it was always, I remember a Garbarino saying. And I realized as I got older and made decisions that these were the people who influenced my life. Why did I write the book? Because I think we owe it to those who have gone before us and who have positively contributed to our lives to talk about it. Because we need to pass that on to our children and our grandchildren. You're talking about where you came from in Italy. I didn't know where Assunta Garbarino, as I know her as Graham, I don't know where she came from in Italy, or at least I didn't, until I found one piece of paper that talked about an Anthony Giacchetta who was born in the town of Cicello, Italy. And I'm saying, he was a Paisan. When I asked who this guy Tony was, my uncles would tell me, he's a Paisan of Graham's. So that told me they're all from Cicello, Italy. And if you input the name Garbarino, you're going to find out it's a northern Italian name as compared to a southern Italian name. The other thing you're talking about, Calabria, Marita and I spent a week in a Calabrian village visiting a family, some dear friends. And she can tell you the story about milking the goat while drunk.
Nice.
And then having the goat cheese show up at 6 o'clock the next morning because they converted it into the soft goat cheese so we could have it on the fresh toast.
Wow. Amazing.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop now because I think we're ready to eat. Are we not?
We are, but you can go a little bit more if you want. I mean, it's...
He's going to get killed anyway. All right. I want all the New York Giant fans to raise your hand. I want to get a look at your face. Good. Don't get behind my back. That's all. My uncles, my family up here consisted of my great-grandmother, Graham. She had 4 children. The first one was Lizzie. The second was John, Mamie, and Gordon. Lizzie was my grandmother. And she married a man by the name of Ring, who was from Kingston. He let a few Irishmen in the back door and didn't know about it. But anyway, he got in, and they moved off because he had a job with AT&T. So he went to New York, and then he went to Baltimore. And that's where my origins were. I was born and raised in Baltimore because the brakes got put on my father and his part of the family. He married, and we were always in Baltimore. If you can imagine a kid being excited at Christmas, Easter, birthday, and you wrap that all into one, nothing could match the excitement that I had as a kid when somebody said, we're going to Kingston. That was it. That's all I needed to hear. Get out of the way. I went up, packed my pajamas, and said, here I am. I'm ready to go. But we're not leaving until Saturday. Why? Why can't we leave now? Okay. This was the feeling. This was the place. This was everything that had all the emotional ties. I learned to be a person in that grocery store working for these people. My uncle, they're actually my great uncles, John and Gordon, never married. John ran the store and took care of his mother. When my grandmother Lizzie contracted breast cancer and was very ill, my uncle Gordon went to Chicago, brought her home to Kingston, and cared for her until the day she died. This is the type of people that they were. And there's a section at the end of the book where I talk about the camp in West Hurley. I learned to hunt, I learned to fish, I learned to get in trouble. I was free to roam around this territory, and there's a section in there about how I had a robin redbreast for lunch. After I took a BB gun and shot this robin out of the tree and took it into my uncle. Gordon, look what I shot. And he said, oh, good. I was wondering what we were going to do for lunch today. Lunch? And he said, surely you didn't shoot anything you didn't intend to eat. Oh, no, not me. Ooh. I proceeded to watch him defeather this robin, gut it, put it in a frying pan with a little garlic and oil, and when it came out, it was about that big. And we put it on a plate, and I swear he put it on a platter. Cut it in half. He got half, I got half. And I'm looking at him. He puts the dish in the thing, goes back to finishing his work. I never forgot that. Never shoot anything unless you intend to eat it. That was the mantra of their hunting, it was their fishing. If you had enough, you passed it on to the next person. It never went to waste, and you didn't have it unless you planned on using it. Speaking of food, let's go. Let's eat.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. He's going to come back. That was just kind of a teaser. Okay, so we're going to start from the back.